So this is actually Ragni's story, right? This is how it kind of really starts off. Now I will be cutting this down a lot more to make it somewhat more of like a storybook and voice of the Centaurus as he's telling it like a historian. This is the gameplay of kind of how I became Dragonborn as Ragni. And it was really cool. I was hoping to actually get attacked by a dragon as soon as I enabled him. And I come across this fire cesspool. It looked like it was, a carriage burnt down by a dragon. And in the distance I heard one roar. And I was like, holy shit, this is the perfect timing. The absolute perfect timing for a dragon to show up after looking at this. And so, prior to this, she had joined a mercenary team. I left her there for at least 2 months in real life. So she would just be, she'd find a new team. Because if you've watched her origin stories when she was a kid, she lost her siblings and her mother when she was 10. And she lost her father when she was 19, after he had died due to, an undead attack or something like that. Now, what I did after that was I had to go out on her own, and I travelled out on her own doing smaller jobs and stuff like that, which were sort of inconsequential, something that she could handle, like courier missions or clear out like a bear or something small that her skill level you'd think would be a deal. Like not chasing down bandits, because one person against 60 bandits is a bit bullshit. So I had to do that, and then I had to meet a young Imperial in Riften, a mercenary, who was badly scarred up from his time in the war, like fighting and his, punishment from the Empire, because he refused orders from a CEO that would have got him and his men killed, and so he attacked him, and he was threatened to, the CEO threatened him, and he got locked up and imprisoned and whipped and that sort of shit. Eventually got out, and then went to Skyrim to become a mercenary, and he stood at the inn in the B&bar having a drink and sees this beautiful woman walk in, like, poof. He was locked up for a few years, and he's thinking, fuck, okay, she is gorgeous. I would like to see that unclothed. And he was off on a job, and he him trying to court her, offered to come along and help, and he did. He went along and helped, but she wasn't so easy. He realised that she was quite skilled and wasn't just a pretty face, that she knew somewhat how to handle herself. And so he invited her to the keep, which is the keep watching in the background right now, which was led by a mercenary team, by an orc who he wasn't like this is a brother of the dude that you kill as the assassin, as the Dark Brother of the West in this keep called Correct Tusk Keep. And this is the brother who runs this crew. She joined that, she did jobs of them. I even jumped in as the orc and played as him for some time, and her as a follower, just to kind of make it more immersive that she was following him because he was a boss. In this very last battle, she was the one that found the job, and so she was the one that led the team before the dragon showed up and killed them all. Now, again, I wanted to go to this as she joined a new group, as in she saw these people like her family, and she'd lost her last family when she gained a new one. And before this, she'd actually gone out on a camping trip with this young Imperial, and he had made her a woman. They got a little drunk, went skinny dipping, and had a rather intimate night. And soon after that, they were head and heels over love with each other, and they got married. So she wears a wedding ring of Victoria Vici, which he bought from a merchant in Riften, which is a city of thieves, which was pretty cheap, but she doesn't know that it was the ring of a dead woman that just got married. And here he goes right here. He just got yeeted. And this is kind of how she loses her other family, and is known to be the Dragonborn. Before this, she's green-eyed, sort of alright, not more of like just under a tan skin tone with brown hair. But when she kills this dragon, it's her eye colour will become orange. So after this, she kind of buries her friends and mourns for him for a couple of days before eventually she's walking around town, hears a lot of talk about this Dragonborn showing up. The Greybeards have called them and stuff like this, and she eventually realizes where she needs to go. Now she's escorted here by Cecilia, who finds her and realizes that she's a Dragonborn. She kills the Dragonborn just outside of Felfrey, kills the dragon, and Cecilia shows her here and then says she'll be back. She'll come back with more help. And this is Ragni's journey to the Greybeards. It's bit of back and forth. It's very very long, so I might have to cut this in like 2 different parts. But her journey pretty much began as soon as she lost a second family. She was angry. Okay, she was so tired of losing people, and once to vampires, now to dragons, she now had the power to make the dragons pay for what they've done. You know, she could absorb and eat their souls and kill them. Of course, she didn't know she could permanently kill them, but she knew that she could do something unique to them. Before she was called to the Greybeards. And I kind of wanted her to go from this moderately skilled, like if you put like 5 or 10 bandits in front of her, she'll be outnumbered, she'll be killed. Like anybody. Going from this sort of person that needed people, that always wanted to belong to a group, you know, always wanted to be cared for, or not cared for, but cared about. You know, she always needed people. And then now, from being really tired of being a victim of someone taking her people. So she marches up the 7,000 steps, or however many fucking steps there are. I think it's like actually 700. And she wants to become strong. So she'd no longer have to fear being weak enough to lose the people that she cares about. And this part of the story, man, has taken me like 8 months. 8 freaking months to get to this point in the game. I've been playing Centauros and Sigund, my Civil War characters, and the side Civil War characters, back and forth, losing territory, gaining territory, fighting. You know, it's just like a war should be. It's not going to be over and done with in a day. It's going to be a year or two, and Civil War's been going for 2 years in game. And just back and forth. When I get bored of them, I play as Cecilia and Freya, who are my side characters. Cecilia is a 200-plus-year-old vampire that served as an Imperial during the... You'll see it later on. He served as a Imperial soldier lieutenant at a fort during the Oblivion Crisis, and she's a daughter of General Falkris, or the one in Dragonborn. She was stationed there, and she had like a CO, like an officer of the fort, who was like some highborn member of an Imperial family. And so he was just a young pup who had 0 experience and way too much self-importance. And as soon as so an Oblivion Gate opens up outside the fort, and he locks it down instead of them charging it and knocking down its foundation straight away. But by the time days had passed, they'd been under constant attack. Every time they killed a Daedra, a new one came out constantly. They kept coming like Oblivion, and so. By the time she had grown tired of his stupidity, she had locked him in his own room and took charge of the fort. And she took the men that could, 45+ men, into the Oblivion Gate, and only 7 of them came back because everything's trying to kill him. You've got Scamps, Daedroth, friggin' every creature there is trying to rip your face off you. You've got the plants, vines that have barbs that can penetrate your armor, grass that can cut through your armor and slice up your legs, poisonous, acid-spitting flowers. I mean, the Deadlands is pretty much the Deadlands. It kills anything mortal. And they didn't last very long. They were only in there for like 5 minutes, but it was the quietest 5 minutes of anyone that served in that fort's life. They got back out, she was seriously injured, and she was put in the med bay with the rest of the injured soldiers. And unknowing to them that the cook at the Imperial fort was actually a vampire, and he couldn't get out because it was all locked down. And he was starved, and he saw Cecilia as good as dead. So he fed off her. And eventually she died of a fever, and when she was being dragged away to the fire because they thought it was a disease, they didn't want it to spread, to burn her off, she awoke and fed on the poor bastard, carrying her away. And she was in a corridor between the main fort and like a watchtower, and the corridor had 2 windows, one inside that looked inside the fort, and one that was in the exterior, like outside the fort. And she looked outside the fort, and the gate went down, and the Daedra came in, killing absolutely everything. And in fear, she jumped out the window to the exterior. And of course, with her new supernatural powers, she landed without harm. And she spent at least 50 or so years in Cyrodiil before she moved to Skyrim because it was just too dangerous. The sun sucked, and there was always groups of vampire hunters chasing her. Skyrim was a better place because there wasn't there was little to no vampire hunting action, and the sun was a lot better in the colder region of Skyrim. So she went there, and she's been there ever since. Now Freya, who you'll also see in the future, who's with her, was a werewolf that was part of a pack. She was born to a pack. Now in my game, if you're born to a werewolf parent, you become a pureborn. Your eyes are yellow like a full moon. And she was born to a pack, a rather friendly pack, Because if you can play Skyrim, you know that like there's no werewolves, and I think like they must have been cleansed or something. Now, her people lived in that moon fortress of the Bandits Run, just outside Whiterun, and they were relatively peaceful. People knew what they were. People knew who they were. They traded skins and furs and meats. They were worshippers of Hircine, but they didn't hunt people. They hunted vampires that got too close, or they hunted creatures or other feral werewolves. They were in service to the Jarl, I guess you could say. That vampires stayed away and feral werewolves that got too close, or bad werewolves, so they had full control but did bad things, got killed by them. But eventually an imperial famous werewolf hunter went and just heard about these people in Skyrim, went there with the woeful axe, which was made by Clavicus Vile, to cure lycanthropy in its purest form. And he went there, and they all turned to werewolves to defend themselves, which this axe was made to kill werewolves, slice them up like butter, and their strength became their weakness, and he killed them all. But Freya's parents told her to run, and so she did. And this is during the winter of Skyrim, and she's and it's night time, and she's freezing to death on the side of the road before a armoured woman walks past her, picks her up, and takes her home. And this armoured woman is Cecilia. And Cecilia raises her, but I always imagine Freya waking up smelling a vampire and just losing her shit and turning into a little werewolf before Cecilia's going to drop all the weapons and just like kind of cow or like try and convince the child not to kill her or attack her. And so Cecilia's raised her pretty much to rely on a blade, because again, if she relies on her claws, it's going to get turned to a weakness. And this is exactly what she did. She raised her until she was 17. She went off and she joined the Women of the North. The Women of the North are made up faction for me that wear like slutty, revealing vanilla black armor. They're outcasts. They're the women that love women. Most of them are either bi or lesbian. They're got the warrior culture of like the Amazons and the Mandalorians. They live by their own rules, but they still respect the laws of men. They won't go murdering and stealing from people. They just want to live their warrior life, and in the comfort of another woman's arms or whatever. And so she joined them, but she realised that she was a bit more of a recluse. She didn't really like the way they were all knitted together. And so she left, and she ended up hearing about the person that killed her family, and it was in Cyrodiil. She walked into Bruma, she walked to the inn where he was sitting there celebrating, drinking, and talking up all the girls and all that sort of stuff. When she looked at him, and he saw her across the room looking at her, and he saw her eyes. He knew exactly what she was, and he had an idea that this is someone that had lived through his slaughter. And he smiled as he grabbed his axe, but then she smiled, and she charged him with the blade. She unsheathed the blade and charged him, and the woeful axe is very slow. And it kind of, the fear in his eyes lit up when he realised that she wasn't going to turn to a wolf. Because if she did, the entire town, the entire city would be on her, and his axe would cut through her like butter. Within the space of 5 to 10 seconds, before he could even throw his axe over his head to come down with a chop, she already stuck a blade into his heart and killed him, and took the axe to make sure that no one could use that axe again to kill werewolves. And she became quite strong. She physically started to bulk up so she could wield the axe, make it faster. And she's killed werewolves with it, feral werewolves. And eventually she went back home. She met Cecilia again after disappearing for at least 3 to 4 years, and she grew up with a very attractive vampire, pretty much mothering her. This is a bit of taboo sort of stuff, but she made a move on her and eventually got her into bed. The woman that raised her. They're both now grown-up adults, and so they share a bit of a relationship. Cecilia's bi, Freya is full-blown, muff diver. And I play as those guys, side characters, when I'm bored of the Civil War characters, and they do their own things. Like as Freya, who already had the Hircine's armor and the woeful axe, I did the other quest for Hircine and Clavicus Vile. Both quests actually revolve around helping a dog, or a breed of dog. As for, since I already had the hide of Hircine, I was able to help Sinding, who was a werewolf, just like Freya, and I got the ring of Hircine. And just as, and for Clavicus Vile's quest, instead of having to kill the dog for the axe, I already had the axe, so I was able to help the dog, the Daedric dog, just like, Cecilia's a Daedric dog, and get the helm, which I don't really use. And so I did quests like that. I did the Raven Rock quest for the mine for Cecilia, because she's been around for a very long time, got a lot of gold, she owns a lot of property. Yes, she does. She's like Batman in a way. She's the Dark Knight. She travels at night time killing bandits and saving people and feeding the best way she can without feeding on innocents. And she owns a lot of property, and if people need help, she helps them. Freya, she lives in the bloated grotto after she does the Hersing quest, which is a beautiful place for a barbarian werewolf. Now, the reason I talk about these characters is because they're not just side characters I jump into and play as, and just they're unique characters to me, at least. You know, both of them basically. Cecilia trained Freya to rely on the blade, and she trained her to work how she works, to earn gold through bounty hunting or rescuing citizens. And both of them have the ability to do this on their own, because if she's outnumbered, she's a beast. I mean, she's a monster. She's quick. She's fast. She's an axe that can tear your head off. But if she gets outnumbered, she can just turn into a werewolf, and those Daedric claws will cut through mortal flesh like butter. Same thing with Cecilia. She'll work during the night, you know, when she's got full strength, full power. And this gives her the ability to be fast and silent and supernaturally strong. So she has that ability to be able one vampire to take on 25 plus tired bandits. And she feeds on them. She won't ever bring them back because she does it as a full vampire and they know what she is, so that she doesn't let the secret get out. She brings back their heads. But if she's working with Freya during the day when she's weaker, they might bring back a living person. So this right here, as you're seeing, get back to the main game, that Centaurus and Sigurd have met Ragni coming back from the Greybeards on her quest to grab the horn. And she's basically... They've seen each other, and she's like, no, do not arm your sword towards it. If you do, it's done. And she realises what they're both there for. They're both there to gain her allyship towards their side in the war. So they basically, she knows that. Ragni knows that, and she goes, none of you can commit, none of you can help out the Stormcloaks or the Imperials if they're warring with each other around me. And I will say who I am, and hopefully be protected by my word. Hopefully the Imperials and the Nords will go, all right, you're with me. I'm the Dragonborn. So they know that, and it goes from 2 at the very start, and the team does grow quite a lot. I think I've got like 7 of them now. I don't want to grow too big, not just yet. Now, I did get quite carried away with my side characters. So, again, Ragni is really close to home. I mean, this fort is next door to where she grew up, where she lost everything, and like, she doesn't want anyone to know where she lived. I mean, she's thinking about going home and visiting her dad and her mum's grave, and her siblings' memorial. But she knows she can't. She's got a job to do. As you can see, there it is. There's her home. So,
I've never seen such a thing.
Yeah, I played so many different side characters. Even characters I didn't design as player characters. I just jumped in them for a bit of fun to see if I could die. And yeah, it's a massive story, man. A lot of these characters, like Freya and Cecilia, they know each other. Freya was raised by Cecilia, and then they became lovers when they were both grown-ass women. Sigurd and Centaurus are always fighting the Civil War, but fate is always putting them in a different spot. If if Centaurus goes to Riften to take it, then all of a sudden Sigurd's gone to Markarth. Like they are fated to not meet paths because again, they were scrolls. They're fated to guide and protect Ragni for a certain amount of time. And you got guild characters. God damn, man! I wanted, like you've got Tonrock is the companion's character. He will send a letter to Ragni, inviting him to the Jaw of Asker. He will meet her and eventually follow her, but also and they get the blacksmith to make her some armor out of the dragon bone and stuff she's got, and she'll get a new full set of armor, which will be heavy as fuck. But she'll realize that, and she'll have to like muscle into it, as in she'll grow quite stronger. So at the moment she's weight 30, but I made her body like petite and skinny when she's weight 0, and built like a shit brick house when she's 100. And I want to put her to probably like weight 50, weight 60 by the time she's comfortable on this arm. This dragon bone is the heaviest material in Skyrim, and I want her to eventually wield it like it's a second skin. But when she starts in it, it's going to be clunky as fuck. So that's how I want her to get her armor, by basically befriending the companions. And then further down the quest line, she'll meet the other guild characters. Not the assassins one. She won't meet him. He's an endgame character. So when she goes to find Esbern, she will walk into the Thieves Guild headquarters, and the Thieves Guild character, Tonril, will see her, and then eventually put on a Nightingale gear and ambush the ambushes and join her as the Nightingale. No one will know who the true identity is. What else? The Mage's Guild character, Minerva. She will, of course, be in the library reading a book and studying when the Dragonborn comes in to inquire about the Elder Scroll. And then she will lend her aid in the Dragonborn, to the Dragonborn to, again, help the Dragonborn. The Assassin's character will not. They are staying hidden until the Civil War is over, the Dragon War is over, until the Emperor comes back to Skyrim and he can finally kill him. But it's a massive story, man. Like, I could sit here for 3 hours talking about this, and I'm not too sure people want to sit here for that long listening to someone talk about their imagination gone fucking wild. So yeah, it's crazy, because I spent 8 months playing as his side characters, playing as Sigun and Centaurus, and even the side characters like Tova and Brianna, which is Sigun's grandmother and twin sister, and then Marulia Tullius, who is a character that I made for General Tullius, which is his niece, a sort of elite vanguard that I started the story with. Far out. Just all these different, and even like random followers. Like I'll pick a random follower, and I was like, alright, I'll travel around Skyrim as he as a mercenary, and I took one. His name was Brendan Alicia. He's one of my first OG characters I made back in 2013, or that was at 12. I haven't changed his look or his name or his inventory kit, which was, you know, since then. And I played as him, and I walked around as a mercenary, joined on the teams, and fought alongside Lyris Titanborn, who's another character I made, inspiration from ESO, but her character, her name is actually, she's she's entirely inspired from that character. You know, she grew up as an orphan, an unusually tall child that, you know, read the tale of the tale of the three wars, and read about Lyris Titanborn, saw a drawing of her, and imaged herself with Lyris Titanborn. But I keep forget where I'm going. I've got so much shit cooked up in my head. Yeah, and I had this mercenary, and I put him in the gladiator ring, and I had him there for like fighting, like day in, day out, earning gold through fighting. And eventually I retired him, put him back in like the follower cell, and I wanted him to become like a member of the Dragonborn's team. He was like a gladiator. He was like, well, he was once an Imperial soldier but left, and then, you know, just become a gladiator, become a mercenary. And that shit's fun, man. Like, I've always imagined a game where you could play as the main character, but if you got bored of that, you could just jump into any random soul. It's a bit like how Watch Dogs 3 eventually became along. Like, there's no real main character. There's the one you create first up, which I guess you could call your main character. The first one you play as dies, then you get to create your character, and then you can recruit anyone across the world in London. And I love that idea, which, you know, I always thought about playing as different people beforehand, before that game came out. And with mods in Skyrim are fucking crazy. Mods in Skyrim are like porn. If you can think of it, it's most likely already been created, including porn. There's the immersive side of sex mods, and there's like the mummy milking side of the Lover's Lab that's gone full fucking nuts. Fooders, milking, all sorts of weird shit. Bestiality being one of them. And all that sort of crazy mumbo jumbo. So, mods like alternate actors, which allows me to jump into a follower, right? Have their, and everything I gain of that, like all the inventory that I gain from that follower stays in that follower. I mean, it's crazy. All the characters like Centaurus, Sigun, Freya, Cecilia, every time I open the inventories up, that's my inventory from a different, you know, from different time I was playing. It's nuts. And then mods like Protheseus, which allows me to update a character's looks with presets that I've saved into Protheseus from my race menu. I've created the way it looks, I've saved it in the preset with Protheseus. I can then apply it to an NPC, and it updates their looks, even the weight. Like in the game, if I meet a character in game, the saves work a little bit different for some weird reason, and I change their weight with a mod, so they go from weight 10 to weight 100, you'll see a neck seam, an obvious neck seam. And the only way you can change NPC's weight is either if you make a preset of them, I'm not going to go into that bit, or if you change their weight before you actually meet them, that will work. But Protheseus, even like you can change the weight from weight 10 to weight 100. I do the same thing with Ragni. She was weight 0 when I started. She's now weight 30, and if I jump out of her and jump into a new NPC, she'll still have her weight 30 look. It's fucking amazing. The ability to change an NPC's looks, I've wanted that since 2012. And then Fallout 4 came along, I was like, holy fuck, you can do this with looks menu? You know, but then Fallout, then Special Edition came out, I was really hoping they'd do that for Special Edition, but no. But Protheus is a god tier fucking mod. Ability to change an NPC's looks in game. Like, that shit is the absolute best. Like, I would not be able to play my multi-character playthrough story without alternate actors, and especially, I'd probably be able to do it with alternate actors, but I'd need like 6 different versions of the character, which would be a pain in the ass to manage. But Protheus, it just cuts it down to one NPC. I'm able to just update their looks over time. Over the space of 2 years of my game, characters do change their looks here and there. And I like that. You know, Centaurus, who went from being, you know, weight 60 to well shaven, to then having scars and becoming weight 100, a strong lad and with a big beard, and stuff like that. And this is, it just adds a shit ton more immersion to my game. Like, it's just amazing. So my game is just massively big and immersive, and all these characters that I play, as their stories intervene when it comes to the Dragonborn. You've got like, say, 6 or 7 or 12 characters, and they all go out and do their own thing, and they never meet unless it's like Freya or Cecilia. But when the Dragonborn comes along, it unites them all together. Their stories all weave into one path, into the Dragonborn's path. And you know, the bit that I'm most excited for is the Peace Summit, when the Imperials and the Stormcloaks have a truce. And I'll be able to have Sigund and Bearclaw Raiders and Centaurus' 99th cohort fighting side by side. The Bear and the Dragon, the Red and the Blue, fighting side by side to kill dragons. And plus people that have travelled across Tamriel and Skyrim to join up. You know, she unites these people's stories. And that's what I'm really excited for, to have this peace to where I can have Stormcloak soldiers and Imperial soldiers fighting side by side, realising that their war is nothing, and some of them might even realising that their hatred was misplaced. And it's a big development for the Dragonborn character, because their father was a soldier for the Empire, and he didn't like what the Empire did. He hated it, but he didn't go off and join another war. He raised a family, and he told her all about that it was just a wasted war fighting brothers. And she believes what her father said was true, that the Empire, what they did was weak, but you know, Nords and the Imperials are brothers, and they rely on each other. And so, as a young Nord, she's seeing this world at war, and she doesn't know if she should join her homeland and free her homeland from the Empire, or remain true to her father's words. And throughout seeing Sigund and Centaurus become, you know, hating each other, to becoming friends, and then their factions having to join forces to defeat the dragons, seeing them drink and dance and even have sex with each other, you know, having parties and fun and all that sort of stuff when they're resting and not killing dragons. It makes her realise that what her father said was absolutely true, that the war was a waste, that it was just brothers fighting brothers. And when the Civil War is, when the Dragon War is done, she'll disappear. Everyone considers that she died defeating Alduin, and she'll disappear for some time. Now, I don't want to go too much further. I might as well. The video's almost done. So basically, when, you know, after the year of her training and becoming the ultimate Dragonborn, going from this weak little girl, not really weak, but moderate woman, to then becoming a demigod as a Dragonborn. And when she defeats Alduin, she won't come back because she won't want to join the side of the war, because she doesn't believe the war is just, and that she'd be betraying one of her closest friends, either Sigund or Centaurus. Both those people went into the war wanting glory and freedom. Then when they went back into the second part of the war, they just wanted to end and bring peace to Skyrim, so they'd stop fighting each other. And both of them went in there hot-headed and full of glory, and then at the end of it they just wanted it done so they could stop killing each other. But Ragni, you know, she disappeared. She went into exile, and she'll only show up for like mods that require big DLC mods or DLC that require her to be the Dragonborn. But there is a story I've planned for where Sigund gets found out that her father was Ulfric Stormcloak, and she gets imprisoned by the Empire, and they're going to kill her because they don't want an heir of the Stormcloaks starting another war. And Centaurus has by this time fallen in love with her through his journey with her, and he tries to get her out, and he's captured and then, you know, basically stripped of all titles and trialed as a traitor to the Empire, and he's locked up with her to face execution, to where both Sigund and Centaurus' troops are basically blockading the gate of Solitude, both, you know, rioting, sort of like, if you don't let them out, we'll start a war. And Tullius is really nervous about this, but then all of a sudden a dragon, now this is probably like a year or so after like, the end of the Civil War and the death of the Emperor, and the dragons just land in Solitude, you know, outside the front gate, and everyone's just seen it, and they've seen this woman get off it, and they know exactly who she is. They've stopped riding and yelling and blocking the gate, and they've all made way for her. They've gotten out of the way, they let her walk in. She's walked into Castle Dower, demanded Sigurd and Centaurus' freedom, and said to Tullius, if she starts a war, I'll be the one to end it. And he goes, yep, I'm not going to argue with the Dragonborn. You could rip my face off right now, just a whisper. And so he lets him go. Now, basically, Ragnar goes up to Sigurd and goes, if your intentions are to start another war under your father's name, I will be the first one to end it. You know, threatening to say, Sigurd doesn't want to start a war, she just wants to live a life. But, you know, everyone's fearing that because she has a Stormcloak lineage that she will start another war. And, you know, she goes, if you start another civil war in Skyrim, I will end it. And, you know, she gets back on a dragon and flies off. And I don't know, after that, maybe she might meet, she might hang out with Centaurus and Sigurd when they're married, but it's a massive story. I'm really surprised my save has lasted this long, because I can't believe it, man. This is probably the longest I've ever had to save. It's 300, almost 400 hours. I've started since March, and like, there's a lot of hope in this. And this is the furthest I've ever gotten into a story. The furthest. All this is new ground for me. Becoming the Dragonborn, slaying dragons, gathering a team, and I hope I can go as far as that, as Sigurd and Centaurus being locked up in an Imperial jail, waiting execution for Ragnar to come down out of the blue and save him after a year of being thought dead. So I'm really hoping I can get there, and then hopefully I'll be able to play the Beyond Skyrim quests. Maybe Centaurus has been resituated by the Empire and forgiven, and you have these titles back. Maybe even Sigurd joins the Empire, you know, for the upcoming war that will happen with the Dominion. She'll wear Imperial armor with like the bear claw helmet and like all that sort of crazy shit. So I'm hoping to get that far in this game. Well, this game is about story. It's like a novel. It's like a series. Something very quick and something very funny. The Greybeard's quest at the very start bugged at me, and the count for the hit 3 targets with Futhra wasn't working. And since it wasn't, it made me angry, and this is what I did to him.
So, this quest is bugged. Great. So demonstrate your shout is not working. I've done it probably 5 to 6 times now, and it's not, as you can see right here. So, you know what, motherfucker? Fuck you.
Strike the targets.
Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you all and engines. Because you know what, I'm sick to death of your buggy shit. Put it through your back. Yeah, that's what you deserve, you old fucking cunt. Fuck you, end your quest. I'll kill Elduin on my own.